Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. It's another double header recorded at our local meetup in Nightly Gaming in Bathgate. This is the first meetup I've attended since March because of my long absence. So it was really good to get back, see the guys and get a game myself. I played one game, somebody had to leave, Jamie had to leave early, so I used the opportunity to record more fully a second game. So we've got two games for you, and we're going to be following Lawrence and his bulge list because it's the most interesting one that turned up on the day, one that I think you guys will be interested in seeing. Lawrence's core formation was the Brigade Panzer IVs, lots and lots of Panzer IVs, some Stugs with Jagdtigers in support. So there's lots of stuff in there that I'm sure we'd all like to see in action. You've got the sort of multitude of medium tanks, medium armour, medium anti-tank, but aggressive and poorly motivated, and then a couple of really tough tanks, impossible to defeat on the front, and apart from another Jagdtiger or similar, nothing's going to stand up to the incoming fire from it. So an interesting combination. Now, we played 120 points, which nearly gave me a nosebleed. You know me, I'm a 100 points kind of guy, but there was a consensus that it would allow the German players who were bringing the big cats to bring more tanks. My own thoughts on that: if you are playing big tanks and your opponent has got more points, they've just got more guns that they can get around your flanks, you're kind of diluting the advantage that you've got. But that's just my thoughts. So I brought Yanks as an allied force. There was also another American force. Peter had a Hellcat, an infantry force that you've seen before, though 120 points. And Sean brought some Brits, some Cromwells that you're going to see in a game. We have two games. The first one is going to be me against Lawrence, so it's quite brief in terms of recap, as I was playing the game all the way through, and there's no time to mess about when we're out playing. And then we've got Lawrence against Sean, which is a good full review of the game. So let's go over and take a look at the list that I brought before we start with the first game. Here is my 120 point veteran US armour formation. The formation itself is the platoon of 76s with a jumbo, platoon of Persians and platoon of Stuarts. Normally I wouldn't bring Stuarts, but the points were going and I had to use what's in my collection. And the HQ is 275s, one of them being a jumbo. And support, part of the formation also is the mortars, the armoured mortars. In support we've got 4 veteran Chaffies, my cavalry armoured scout platoon in the middle there, then 3 priests and a battle-weary rifle platoon with the half-tracks. So it's not a hell of a lot of tanks for 120 points, but it's got some good balance and survivability. The Persians are kind of like Panthers in respect of their armour and their hitting power, and the jumbos, like being a careful unit. If I keep them in cover, there's a good chance one of those hits is going on to a jumbo, and I can keep my HQ jumbo beside the Persians, for instance, if they've got to do some heavy lifting, and attach on during shooting, which might bounce a shot off onto a jumbo again. So it's 120 points, more than I would normally use. Don't know how it's going to do against a horde of Germans, and how it's going to cope with really hard hitting, hard to kill Jagdtigers. So I chose this quarter here for my deployment. That is where Lawrence is attacking from, that is where the other objective is. And you can see another objective just there. Now I've got infantry, my HQ, my priests, my mortars, and just up by the church I've got my Stuarts. Now my infantry are dug in, but I'm in a position to get them in half tracks and then head off towards that objective depending on where Lawrence puts his main attack. I'm deployed here and kind of exposed. I could be behind the hill, behind the trees around the church, but I'm worried about tanks sweeping around that open flank, so I'm staying in cover. Lawrence has deployed his Hummels and Wesps at the back, the observers on the right of his deployment zone, Panzer IVs all around that house, 88s and the Jagdtigers staring down at my guys hiding in the hedges, and then on the road on the flank he's got Stugs and Panzer Grenadiers that can perhaps make a rush towards that far objective. Lawrence's first turn, you can see the Stugs are moving off to protect the flank, Panzer Grenadiers moving up the road, a nice solid lump of Panzer IVs here with the armour cars moving up that open flank. His ranged in Hummels, pre-ranged in, managed to bail a half track. The Wesps, he moved the ranged in marker for that and managed to get a base of infantry and a priest, and the other priest died to a nasty Jagdtiger shot. So my turn one, I've got a lot of motivations to do already. The priest stayed, the mortar didn't get back in, and the infantry unpinned. So the priest is still on the table, the mortars are down to 2 tubes, but the infantry can move. And oh, by the way, I popped my ambush and I got reserves first turn, so they dashed over behind the wood, keeping out a line of sight. So in terms of shooting, the single priest managed to range in but got no hits because it's on rerolls straight away. And then the mortars, they also ranged in that spot once again on rerolls. 188 got hit and failed its save, but then I failed its firepower. Now the ambush, the Stuarts managed to get a kill and a bail against the armoured cars, and in this ambush here only got 3 hits out of 8 shots, but they got 2 kills and 1 bail. I'm in turn 2 motivations. The 88s unpinned, the Panzer IV remounted, and the armour car remounted and also stayed past its last stand with help of the company command. So Lawrence's movement, the Panzer Grenadiers are hiding behind the wood, Stugs hiding there in the flank against reserves. The Panzer IVs are moving around the other side of the church to stay away from these guys here. The armoured car is going to try and go out in a blaze of glory. Now the Jagdtigers successfully blitzed over and managed to get 1 hit at long range, and believe it or not, the jumbo, I got it on the jumbo and it managed to save, so it's a bail only. The Panzer IVs fired down here and missed. I'm still pretty much caught on the ground, though the priest isn't. It got killed by an 88. Other 88s shot at the Sherman HQ but missed. And then the Hummels tried to range in on my Sherman platoon and missed, didn't range in. The West re-ranged in, got a pin and 1 dead infantry base. So my turn 2 motivations, the infantry unpinned, the jumbo got back in, the mortar didn't. You can see I've moved the Shermans. I also got more reserves in, folks, straight away, so I'm swinging round my reserves to protect the objective and block the flanking attack. I've got some infantry in there, a bazooka there, and I've moved these bazookas up, folks, into the wood, and I'm shooting at the back of the tanks with my priests, my Stuarts. The priests managed to get no kills, and the bazooka managed to get 1 bail, and the mortars managed to kill an 88. German turn 3, the 88's unpinned, but the bailed out Panzer IV, even with the company command for a reroll, didn't get back in. Oh, and the armoured car, it ran away, failed its last stand. So in terms of movement, you can see the Stugs moving over, try and deal with these guys. The infantry have debussed and moved into the wood, but keeping back out of line of sight. The Panzer IVs and the infantry's half tracks are lining up to shoot the bazookas in the woods. And then the artillery ranged in, 1 on top of the tanks, that was the Hummels, and 1 on top of the infantry, that was the Wesps, but didn't get anything. The Panzer IVs managed to kill 1 bazooka, and then another 2 bazookas fell to the half tracks. Otherwise it would have been a lot of bazookas sitting in that wood there. Now the 88s were restricted, but they managed on a 7 to hit and kill the normal HQ Sherman and missed a mortar half track, and the poor priests poor Stuarts got smashed to bits by those Panzer IVs. So US turn 3, the infantry didn't unpin, the half-track, the mortar half-track did. Got my last reserves on and they've come up to get some near shots at the Stugs. In terms of other movement, the cross-check's all successful. I moved just within 6 inches of those Panzer IVs to keep me out of line of sight of the big nasty 88s and Jagdtigers further up the field. In terms of shooting, they got quite a few hits but only got 1 kill and a couple of bales. These guys came in to finish off one more Panzer IV, so there's just one left alive from that from platoon. Bazooka also fired and missed. The Greyhound managed to get a bale on the back of one of the Stugs, and I've brought my half-tracks up. Going to need their MGs to deal with those infantry and German half-tracks, and the Chaffies are moving up at the moment to protect my flank against the Stugs. I forgot to say the Stuart, the survivor, he ran away. German motivation turn 4, the Stug didn't get back in and the infantry didn't unpin, the last stand was passed with the help of the company HQ on the Panzer IV. For movement, the infantry dug in into the woods and the Stugs successfully blitzed to face the scouts. The big heavies there are dashing up. The HQ and other tanks are keeping us out of sight to try and keep the formation on the table. In terms of shooting, the Panzer IV got some revenge and got a kill. It was too close for me to use mistaken target on the Jumbo. The Stugs back here managed to get 2 5s out of 4 and got a kill and a bale on the Greyhounds. The artillery ranged in but didn't get any hits at all. That was the WEF, sorry. The Hummels ranged in, got a few half-tracks, 2 kills and a bale but nothing on the Pershings. And then the 88s killed a mortar half-track, tried to get my Jumbo and some guys in the house because angles of fire were quite restricted, but no luck there. US turn 4. So I tried some movement in the wood here. I wanted to pull myself back from those approaching Jagdtigers and protect my flank, but 2 failed. Cross checks, folks. Moving in the woods is always tricky. The Chaffies moved up to get flank shots onto the Stugs. Scouts stayed put and the Persian moved up just to get line of sight on the restricted number of targets. So in terms of shooting, the guys in the wood stayed, got on the ground. The guy behind the back of the wood missed. These guys though had much better luck. They managed to hit everybody and kill even the Stug showing its front armour. So there's one bailed out Stug there. Mortars ranged in on the scout mortar ranged in the back of the wood, and the armoured mortars ranged in on the front of the wood. And I finally remembered to fire my little 60mm mortar up at those 88s, ranged in but no hits this turn. Everything else here is not shooting, keeping the command gone to ground. German turn 5 motivation, the infantry, they didn't unpin, they've dug in. The Stug remounted but then failed its last stand. I rolled a 2, so I legged it. And as you can see, those Panzer IVs are coming into my flank as I was worried. So in terms of movement, you can see the Panzer IVs coming into flank with the company HQ, and the Jagdtigers are making a tactical move, get some shots downrange. In terms of shooting, these Panzer IVs have come round for revenge, needing 5s. They got 2 hits. One on the side of a Jumbo, which failed its save even with side armour 8, and it died. And then a bale on the 76. So the Jumbo survived a Jagdtiger and died to a Panzer IV. One Jagdtiger shot needing a 7 because of slow firing, didn't get any hits. The 88s managed to get one of the Chaffies, and then there was quite a bit of artillery fire down into my blob of infantry here. Ranged in successfully, some pins but no casualties. American turn 5, all the motivations were passed, including importantly the Shermans in the woods, so there's 2 of them left alive, and the Greyhound passed, remounted rather, and moved up to get some shots into the wood. Chaffies are moved up to once again shoot the wood but move over towards the flank of those big guys. I've kept them stationary and gone to ground, sorry, that's the Pershings, and then over here managed a cross check so that I could get firing, and the HQ moving out to get firing. If I kill these guys, it's the end of the platoon. So, end of the formation. He fired 2 shots on 4s and missed. He fired 2 shots on 3s, got 2 hits, and was a kill and a bale. He had two shots on fours or fives, I can't quite remember, but he missed. But the bazooka fired, got a hit and a kill, finishing that platoon off and breaking the formation. So folks, there you go. I managed a formation break just as the Jagdtigers were starting to come forward and threaten me. I knew I was going to be in a total shooting alley with all those 88s. I couldn't hide behind the church with no really suitable terrain there, and the objective was in the back corner away from the church as well. So I managed to keep my head down where I had to and stick it out where I had to. I was lucky with the reserves. They came on in perfect order really, 1, 2, 3, just like that. And there was sufficient terrain to keep me out of the range of all that long range hard hitting anti-tank that Lawrence had brought with him. So a little bit of luck and decent use of the terrain was enough to get me through in that particular game. So let's go over to Lawrence's second game now and see how his formation gets on against a veteran British list. So before we move on to the second game, a quick chat about the other ones. Now, Lawrence went on to play Sean had the British force, and his list, as you'll see, has just got like a huge amount of platoons of small, careful tanks, each of them having Fireflies, then lots of other little armoured types to run around all over the place, so that he could be all over the table or he could concentrate if need be. And in the first game he played Tom, who had an SS list, an SS Panther list from Bulls German, and I can't remember the mission, but Sean managed to win in that game. And Lawrence's first game, he was up against Jamie, who brought Tigers and King Tigers just the way he likes it, and it was Jamie attacking and Peter defending in fighting withdrawal. And Jamie did what he likes to do, which is just like a knife, charge his heavy armour right into the heart of the defences, and Peter just held on. He was like inches away from getting pushed off his objective just in the last turn. And then subsequently Peter played Tom free for all, and once again, like, Tom was really aggressive, and once again Peter held on just by that much to time out to get a win. If his infantry had been pushed back just that tiny bit more, he'd have been out. So we're kind of calling him the Flames of our Limpet. I'm not sure if that's an insult or a compliment. Right, so that.
Hang on. No, that's right.
Right, so that's HQ then 1, 2, 3, 4 platoons?
Yep.
Plus that?
Yep, and the Stewards.
And the Stuarts?
Yep.
And then you've got
Sherman's in support, Sexton's with an artillery, and then 2 platoons.
these Jagdtigers. Lovely, thanks.
Other names.
German deployment, we've got the Stugs, Panzer IVs, HQ, Panzer Grenadiers, and you can see an objective marker behind that hill, 88s, Wesps, then Panzer IVs, Hummels, the Jagdtigers, another objective you can see there too, folks. And then you can see scouts in front of the hill, the HQ and anti-aircraft behind the hill with a platoon in support. There's also some universal carriers tucked out of sight behind that building just to the right of the hill. And now we can see Sean's main force. You can see there's some more scouts, and also 1, 2, 3 platoons of the Cromwells, the Stuarts, the Shermans, and the priests in the wood. There's an observer sitting in that middle wood, by the way. So the important roll-off to see who goes first. This is a meeting engagement, remember, folks. And we get a 3 and a 3. And a reroll gets a 3 and a 3. And a reroll gets a 6. Surely, no, it's a 6. And then finally a 1 and a 2. So Brits go first. As this was a meeting engagement, Sean couldn't use his artillery and couldn't use his planes. So a little bit of movement from scouts and one platoon of tanks, one platoon of Cromwells, and that's it. So over to Lawrence. So for Lawrence's movement, failed blitz on the Stug, so they've stayed behind the hill, not moved. Panzer IVs have moved up, and another platoon of Panzer IVs have moved up there too. Lawrence is starting his shooting with his artillery, using one observer for his 2 artillery batteries ranging in here. The Hummels ranged in first of all, but didn't get any hits. So he's now bringing in the Wesps using the same observer, so he's only got 2 dice left to range in, but he gets it on his first dice. But that means these guys are effectively hit on the second attempt to roll in, and Lawrence would have got a hit, but he rolled the best he got was a 4. Against Careful, he really needs a 5. So no hits again, but ranged in. Lawrence's other shooting is coming from the 88s. One is targeting the observer straight ahead, and the other ones are heading off to the platoon of Cromwells that have stuck their nose out up front. But 6s needed for those long range Cromwells, 7 for the observer, so no hits this turn. The Bully Boy Jagdtigers are unleashing their 128 mils against the scouts. They get 1 hit because they are still going to ground. We've got concealment, and mistaken target is failed, so it's night to 1 Daimler armoured car. These Panzer IVs are trying some speculative shots again at the observer, needing 7s. Nearly got one, but no cigar, and then everything rounded off with a shooting scoot to start moving the Jagdtigers a little bit further forward. The only starting step actions for Sean is rolling for planes, and yes, they're coming in, and they're arriving back here, keeping away from potential anti-aircraft, except the 88s have got a very long range. And then it's time for movement. Lots of dice getting rolled here to try and get out of the wood. It can be easy to get into the wood sometimes, folks, but try to get back out, that's a different story. So it's a general advance on this near side, apart from 2 Shermans and 1 Stuart who couldn't move. Everyone else is piling forward to put pressure on this near objective. Sean's staying aggressive on the far side though, moving up his armoured cars to take on the Hummels and the universal carriers with Piats to take on the Panzer IVs. British shooting is starting with the artillery, but Sean's made a mistake straight away. He's put his ranged in marker down before rolling the dice. And we all know what happens when you do that, folks. Miss, miss, miss. The Crusader anti-aircraft also fired at the 88s. They got a few hits, but no successful kills. Now those low point pesky universal carriers with Piats are going to have a couple of shots at Panzer IVs. They get 1 hit, a failed save, subsequently failed firepower though, but they've bailed out one of the Panzer IVs. And on the far side, a Daimler is going to start a fairly long-term argument with a Hummel here. It manages to get 1 hit, failed save, but then a failed firepower, so 1 bailed out Hummel. Now the Cromwells on the hill are firing at those Panzer IVs beside the wood. Not good shooting though. The only hits that were achieved were on a Panzer IV that was already bailed out. It took 2 hits. But then Lawrence manages to get 2 6s for the save. So the Panzer IVs laugh off the Cromwells for this turn at least. The British armour approaching the hill has put a bucket load of mainly MG dice into the infantry. That's all they've really got targets that are in line of sight. Lots and lots of dice here, folks, but nothing effectual. Now for the nasty Typhoons ranging in with rockets on those Panzer IVs between the woods, and they manage it on the 3rd attempt. So there's still a lot of targets under there. As it turns out, they hit both off the HQ and 1 off the platoon, but only resulted in the destruction of 1 tank. Lawrence's motivation, the fearless, note that folks, fearless Hummel, gets back in. The Panzer IV on the far side gets back in, but the infantry over here, they don't unpin. German movement. The armour cars failed a blitz but are coming out to try and deal with these armour cars. The Panzer IVs between the woods here are just manoeuvring, I think, to get shots on those universal carriers. And on the near side you can see the HQ is peeking out between the wood and the hill, and the Panzer IVs are just lining up for line of sight really. Lawrence has started his firing with the Jagdtigers on the far side, shooting up onto the careful and concealed long range Cromwells on top of the hill. So no hits there folks, which isn't surprising. The armoured cars managed to get one hit on the Daimler armoured car, but it makes a save. Due to line of sight, one of the 88s is going to fire at the anti-aircraft Crusaders, 2 dice short range, looking for 5s but no hits. The other 3 are going to fire long range against Shermans that are a little bit beyond line of sight here at the moment of the camera folks, but are going to go for these Shermans and manage to get 1 hit, 1 kill. Now to the artillery. Both the Hummels and the Wesps are still ranged in over that platoon of Cromwells. The Hummels got 1 hit on a Firefly, but it made it save. The Wesps also hit the Firefly and the Sherman, and the Sherman failed, but firepower was failed, so it ended up with 1 bailed out Sherman. The Panzer IVs on the far side have a bit of an unequal struggle here against those careful Cromwells behind the crest of the hill, but they're having a go. They managed, with the help of long range, the Cromwell managed to match the anti-tank, then Lawrence failed his firepower, so no effect. 2 of the Shermans by the wood are firing at the poor Crusader anti-aircraft. They managed to get 2 6s, which is what they needed to hit, and the guns just went straight through. 1 ended up as a bail and 1 as a kill. A bit of shooting and scooting on the far side, mainly aimed at getting those Jagdtigers further forward. British motivation, the Crusader anti-aircraft gets back in, but then fails its motivation, which leaves 1 more motivation over here on the near side, that single Sherman, and here we go, it remounts. There's also a last stand for this Sherman here. There's still 2 other Shermans from that platoon alive, but at the end of the last movement phase, those 2 Shermans were stuck back in the wood, so that single Sherman is effectively on the last stand, but it passed thankfully for Sean. No planes for Sean this turn, so he's starting his movement by bringing forward, after passing the cross checks, those 2 Shermans. The Stuart that's stuck back in the wood though, it still isn't going anywhere. The rest of the movement, Sean's continuing his advance, these guys moving up, cross-check over a wall here, and then further cross-checks into the wood so that he can be out line of sight of 88s and close enough to do damage to Panzer IVs. The cars have moved up, these 2 tanks here have moved across, and then the universal carriers are moving up again to fire more Piats. Sean is starting his shooting with his sextons, trying to get those 88s, and this time it ranges in first time. There's 2 guns under the template. After all the rolls, 1 failed its save, but Sean failed his firepower, so the 88s are still there, but pinned. So the Daimler, stationary, is firing 2 shots and getting 2 hits on Hummels. This could be nasty. 2 saves required. Lawrence passes 1, fails the other, and another failed firepower, so just another bailed Hummel. And those pesky universal carriers with their Piats, 3 shots at the Panzer IVs, slow firing, so a penalty of 1 results in just the 1 hit. Save and throw though is a fail, and 5 up firepower is passed, so the carriers have killed another Panzer IV. The Cromwell HQ platoon is firing 4 shots down at the armoured cars, the 234s. He manages to get 2 hits. Lawrence needs a 6 to get a potential bail. He manages it for 1, so the result is 1 dead 234 and 1 bailed 234. Line of sight for the other platoon on the hill is somewhat restricted now because of casualties on the Panzer IVs. Only 1 tank is visible. It gets hit twice, so fails twice, and it's a goner. Time to clobber the nearby platoon of Panzer IV, so 3 shots from this platoon, including the Firefly, gets 1 Cromwell hit and 1 Firefly hit. The Firefly, straight to firepower, kills the Panzer IV. The other Panzer IV matched the Cromwell and ended up bailed out. The Cromwell's moving through the wood now joins in. There is some concealment to help protect these aggressive Panzer IVs, but they still get one hit each. The Firefly hit is going to go straight to firepower, and the Cromwell hits end up with just a bale. The infantry on the hill took another plastering, but this time they failed a couple of saves, so there's 2 bases down. And then the company command, who's kind of peeking between the hill and the woods, is getting shot by these 2 Cromwells you can see at the bottom of the frame. So 2 dice equaling 1 hit, 1 save required, but it's a fail. Firepower ends up as a kill, so it's warrior save time to try and get into a live tank, but once again that's failed, so Lawrence is not having much luck. So Lawrence has to start his turn with some important motivations, and his troops are not the best quality in terms of the motivation, remember, being brigade units, and as it turns out he fails his remount on the Panzer IV, which requires a last stand, which he then fails, meaning this flank is starting to crumble. Other motivations: infantry don't unpin, the 88s do unpin, the Hummel remounts, and the single armour car remounts but then legs it, so a bit of a mixed bag there. The Stugs have again failed to pass a successful blitz, so they're going to stay behind the hill, and the 88s can do some shooting on the enemy on that flank. The 88s want some revenge, and they manage to get 3 hits. It's going to be 1 each, and the result is a bailed Firefly and 2 dead Cromwells. The Panzer IVs need to deal with these little pests, and they fire 4 shots at the universal carriers, only 1 hit though, and it results in a kill. The Jagdtigers are shooting up at the hill, the platoon with the Firefly being the target, and they get a 6. Mistaken target, does it work? No, it doesn't, so straight to firepower and 1 dead Firefly. Go on, Jagdtigers. The artillery still has teams under the ranged in templates and their top armour 0, so worth a go here. The Hummels managed to get a bale and a kill, but only against the Dingoes. They missed a Firefly and 1 armoured car. The Wesps once again missed the Firefly, and the armoured car hit the Dingo again. They bailed 1, but it saved. And there is a shoot and scoot from the Panzer IVs to try and back off from those pesky universal carriers. I don't seem to have caught the motivations for Sean's turn, but I think the single Firefly that was left ran away. Now, coming out of the wood, the Firefly bogged. The Cromwells, however, especially with a 12-inch tactical, were able to get right around the flank of the Stugs defending the hill there. And there is now a big crescent of armour facing up to those infantry, ready to shoot them and potentially assault them, and it's even got that Stuart that was stuck in the wood at the back since the beginning of the game. These universal carriers are feeling like heroes now, and Sean is queuing up side shots on those Jagdtigers by driving through the woods, but they both end up failing the cross check, so stick to Panzer IVs, guys. In the face of the Jagdtigers, the tanks on the hill are pulling back out of line of sight. That Daimler is having another go at the Hummels, manages to get 1 hit, 1 failed save, but another failed firepower, so that's a Hummel bailed out for the 3rd turn in a row. The universal carriers have another go at the Panzer IVs, needing 5s this time because of concealment and slow firing, but no hits. The artillery re-range in on the 88s, but no hits. Now to those flanking shots. 2 dice only against those 3 Stugs, only 1 hit. It's going to go straight to firepower and result in a kill on the nearest Stug. Sean has decided to get into the assault. 2 tanks from the Sherman platoon are in range and they move in. Defensive fire hits 1, results in a bail, leaving the other one to charge in for a kill. But the Sherman whiffs its line, so to speak, and misses. The Germans now have to counter-attack, but Lawrence rolls badly enough so that nothing would have been able to counter-attack there, so they now have to break off. I seem to have not recorded the motivations, but as I understand it, the infantry didn't unpin. I think that was the only significant thing. So we're over to shooting now with 88s, reduced to shooting up universal carriers for a lack of other suitable targets. The 88s get 3 hits, 2 on one, 1 on another. The one that took the 2 hits is dead, the single hit just bailed. The Panzer IVs in front of the universal carriers want in on this, guys, get some retribution, and to finish off the last surviving bailed universal carrier, but they went down in a blaze of glory. The Jagdtigers have nothing else to shoot at, so they're going to hit the poor little Daimler platoon, folks. They got 2 hits, 1 on a Dingo, 1 on a Daimler. Straight to firepower, we get a 1 and a 1. When it's not your day, it's not your day. Time for the Stooks to fire. I didn't cover it, I must have missed it, guys, but you can see the Cromwells that shot the Stooks are behind the hill because they managed a successful assault themselves, forcing everything to break off. So the Stooks are fired, they get 1 hit, mistaken target off from a Firefly, and that means the Cromwell's got to make a save. A 6 will keep it safe and gets a 6. So Sean's next turn, he's remounted his scouts and he's got his planes, so the scouts are pulling back out of danger close, so the Typhoons can have a go at these big nasty Jagdtigers. And at the critical point of the table, Sean is moving everything in for the kill. Coming around the side again of the Stooks, he'll remember to do a cross check for the Firefly stuck in the wood. Then everything else is going to start coming over the hill to get shots on infantry, shots on Stooks as required. He started his turn within 4 inches of the objective, so this is a turn in which he can win the game. For shooting, starting with the artillery, they managed to get another hit on an 88. This time it's failed and firepower is passed. Time to clobber these Stooks then, folks, and they've all missed. Unexpected, so the guys up to the front will have to deal with them. So the platoon that didn't move is going to have 4 anti-tank 10, 2 anti-tank 14 shots, and they get a hell of a lot of hits here, folks. 1 miss. The anti-tank 14 can't be stopped, it's at short range, they're going to go straight through, so we're just going to roll firepowers for them, and we get 1 kill and another kill. The Stuarts and the Shermans are in a good position to deal with these infantry who are not dug in. They do have 2 Fausts, but they should be able to shoot them up quite a bit. However, the loss of the Stook platoon breaks the formation. There is only a platoon of 2 Panzer IVs left on the far side of the table. So with the objective about to go, it's game over. However, we're going to go in and see if these Typhoons can kill some Jagdtigers. So that's the first time range in for the Typhoons. They will need 4s to hit because the Jagdtigers are careful and they get 1 hit. It's anti-tank 5 against top armour 2, so Lawrence rolls another exciting 1, so firepower to kill and it's dead. So there you go, folks, the Typhoons killed a Jagdtiger, but Lawrence's luck wasn't doing much towards the end of that game, to be honest. So there you go, folks, there's a couple of good different kind of games, different kind of missions for the Panzer IV Brigade with Jagdtiger support. My own thoughts on it is, you know, like, you're going to get a kicking, your Panzer IVs are going to get a kicking, especially when there are no other valid targets sitting around for anti-tank. So I think you either bring maybe a mix of Panzer IVs and Panthers, so that if they're ignoring the Panzer IVs, you've got lots of hard-hitting shots coming back from Panthers, or you make sure that you're bringing your Jagdtigers up with the Panzer IVs, so that the kind of careful opponents that you're up against, you're not trying to hit them at long range on 6s, you can get in short range and at worst be looking at 5s, maybe even better. You just got to watch your flanks. You can use terrain to do that to a large degree, but you've got to take risks with the Jagdtigers, I think, folks. If you're going to be an attacker, you have to get stuck in, otherwise you've got a low number of dice which are going to struggle to hit careful troops. In defence, might be a different matter. You can maybe just sit them back sniping off, but you're always going to have a small number of dice to be causing damage. They certainly will at least hold an objective. You'll have to kick them off it. It's unlikely you'll bomb them off it unless you've got something like Typhoons. But if you've had any experience yourself, guys, any ideas, then stick your thoughts down in the comments below. So there you go, folks. That's us done for another battle report. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thanks to all the subscribers out there. And as always, if you like to subscribe, hit the button. It'll help us build the channel, bring this kind of content to more Flames of War enthusiasts. And if you hit the bell button, we'll definitely see you guys on the next one.